The Rocky Mountains of North America, home to some of the most beautiful, pristine forests in the world. But the shades of burnt gold and reds aren't the changing tones of autumn. They're dead and dying trees.
Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is July 13th, 2013, and here are your news updates for today. Let's first go into the watchers watching the world. Traveling Sunspot Group AR 1785. July 3rd to July 2013. Oh. How epic solar winds make brilliant polar lights. Those are two new ones that just came up there. Large distance earthquakes may cause smaller quakes at U.S. drilling sites. Typhoon Solik made landfall in northern Taiwan, now moves towards mainland China. And let's see what I did all that. Moving on. Okay, let's try the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Iceberg Antarctica ice mass the size of Chicago breaks off Pine Island Glacier. NASA finds deep blue planet 63 light years from Earth that may be a living hell. Oh, that's the one that rains ice and has winds about 300 miles an hour. Heard that on Coast to Coast. And but rain's ice, ooh, and might get up to thousands of degrees, like 2,000 degrees on the surface. Wow, sounds kind of weird. I can't see why it would be blue if it's that hot. But rain's ice, rain's glass. United Arab Emirates reports its first MERS case, M-E-R-S case. Severe heat wave grips Japan, 12 dead. Okay, it's terrible. Let's see what else is going on. Let's go to the breaking news real quick. Okay, let's see what's going on there. Stand by. Here we go. Authorities investigate reports of an explosion near Nolte, New Jersey. That's coming out of NJ.com 14 minutes ago. Let me see what else. Martin family attorney for Trayvon to rest in peace. We must be peaceful. That was an hour ago. Let me see. Reported tornado damages buildings near Pipestone, Canada. Storm Chaser 4850. That was an hour ago. Heads up. Heads up. Magnitude 4.5 earthquake hits off the east coast of Honshu, Japan. That's coming out of a USGS an hour ago. 4.5 earthquake. That's by Fukushima, I believe. Alrighty then. Let's check on Fukushima. The E&E News. Energy News. Sorry it's so late. I had to work. Let's see here. E&E News. Plus I'm uploading. Stay tuned. I'm doing a piece on chemtrails. And I guess the reptilians are on that too. So stay tuned for Coast to Coast. This is from July 10th. And I captured just some of the interesting points of the chemtrails and the reptilians and the weather modification. So stay tuned for that. I'm adding it on here. And then tomorrow I'll put Dr. Deagle's NutriMedical report. Now you won't have to wait as long. Okay, NHK. Excuse me. NHK, concern over highly contaminated fish caught 100 kilometers from Fukushima plant, most radioactive marine product detected in over 2 years. Remember, it's cumulative. TV, Fukushima plant is hemorrhaging radioactivity. Scariest part of all is they don't know where it's coming from. That's where the fuel is, underground. The big mystery is why contamination is coming out now in such a hurry. Oh, it's China syndrome. It's hit the groundwater and it's probably gonna hemorrhage out of there now. I don't know. Okay, nothing new. U.S. Canada. So it is now officially 1 day down of the weekend. We got 1 to go. Stay tuned. Oh, there's the kitty cat up there in the window. Alrighty then. Take care. Please be safe. Please be peaceful. You have issues, please pray. Alrighty then. And turn it over to God. Alrighty then. Does everybody have enough water, food? Be ready for anything. And make sure your pets are taken care of. Just be safe out there. In fact, stay inside if you can. Alrighty then, stay close to home. That's what I would do. Take care. And I'll see you tomorrow on the flip side. Now, Attached Doctor, stay tuned. Alrighty then.
Non-disclosures expiring after 40 and 50 years, that some of them are going to talk. And I think that's going to bring some clarity to what's going on. And I believe there's going to be some tight integration with technologies that were recovered in the 50s and then deployed in the 60s and 70s and so forth. Probably, maybe we don't need to go there. Probably with these triangle craft. I know you had a show a couple of days ago.
Just did, yeah.
That dealt with them. And they seem to be the home base for these planes. There could be enough of those planes, those craft, airborne, that these chemtrail planes never have to touch ground. They never have to be on terra firma.
Why would they manipulate the weather? What do you think? What's their reason?
I would say, why not? If you know you can, and nobody's going to know you are, why not? Let's make something of it. Let's make money. Let's make misery. not else going to own. Because you're dealing with droughts and floods and hurricanes and tornadoes, and the Earth then becomes the disaster machine of choice, and you can target specific locations, for these events. So that's probably the biggest question that I get is why would you want to do it? And my answer is, why wouldn't you want to do it? And the one thing these people really get addicted to is power. That's their drug of choice, is power.
They have nothing else to do they? They're
No,
bored.
and they've got all the money they need, so it becomes this adrenaline, egotistical power play. And I think at some point, this planet is just going to give them the finger. I don't know how that's going to happen. But I think there's got to be an end game. Whether this end game is something they've already seen or already working out, and maybe that's a handing over of these programs back into the civilian sphere of influence, saying, we've got a global warming issue, we need to do or a climate change issue, because we know it's not global warming, it's just climate change. But is climate change really happening? Because my assertion is that since this began in the 70s, we really don't know if the planet is warming or cooling. We really don't know if there's desertification going on. We don't know these things because that data, the natural weather, has been corrupted by these operations.
And we don't know if we're in a cycle or not, regardless of the manipulation.
Right. I mean, we're always in a cycle. I think our knowledge of the sun and the Earth's climate is getting better. But to be able to stick your finger on a chart and say this is exactly where we are on this cycle, I don't think we're that good yet. We're getting there, but I don't think we're there yet. And then if they can blame all this crazy, crazy weather on climate change and global warming, then the politicians are going to come to the people a la Al Gore and say, guys, we need money. We need money to fix this. We need money to change how we interact or are impacting this planet. And we can only do that with more money. So it's not like we don't have solutions to the carbon dioxide and the burning of fossil fuels. We've had those answers for, 100 years?
Yeah.
Since Tesla's been around?
But what are you seeing now, Scotty, as a weather forecaster? What are you seeing out there in terms of anomalies that are bizarre and strange?
Oh, boy. Because they come at so many different scales. I was watching a crazy squall line roll through Indiana and Ohio and northern Kentucky today. And this thing was behaving not like any squall line I've seen before, certainly not in classic thermodynamics. It doesn't happen. The line raced through, but yet the southern end of it, this whole other cluster of storms, was developing and then moved almost due north. Meanwhile, that whole squall line was moving east. So how all of a sudden, when the storm should be moving northerly after the cold front, or moving to the south from the north after cold front, this thing was moving backwards. That's just one thing. I'll see clouds, just independent clouds, one passing intact through another, and they both emerge after their encounter, and they don't look like they've touched. It's like water on a lily pad. It just rolls off. I'll see chemtrails doing a very similar thing. One rolling, let's just say it's a T. They've made a T, that 90-degree angle shape that they're so fond of. And with the crossbar of the T, the top, will move down the other trail. Without deforming, without changing shape at all. It simply moves down it. And I'm like, heck, what is this? What that tells me is that the particles, the aerosols that have been released, or the condensation, if you want to hold to that model, that condensation is not flying with the wind. It's not floating with the wind. It's attached to some other mechanism, some other resonance, some other attracting force. What that is, I don't know for sure.
But you're convinced it's out
there. It's happening. I've been time-lapsing these guys since 2005. I have almost 4 terabytes of time-lapse data. And it boggles the mind, at least my mind, more people in the science, the research side of atmospheric sciences haven't gone and said, what is going on? What's happening? And truly, maybe they have. Maybe they have. But they haven't written any articles. They haven't come out publicly to say, listen, I see this and something's gone wrong. I get emails from meteorologists. There's one in western Colorado that, well, he forecasts for ski resorts. And he sees the trails. He just doesn't know what they're there for. He knows that there's weather modification going on because of the things in the geometry and so forth that we've talked about tonight. He sees that as well. But then the question is, and they always ask, what do I do? What do I do? I'm like, well, we're not going to go anywhere. This isn't going to get done until more people are aware of it. And this just brings up this constant hitting them with the terms, hitting them with the knowledge. And it took me 4 or 5 years of being immersed in this before I had my aha, before I knew, not only believed, but I knew that things were happening in the sky that were not right. And when you look at, Google Weather Disasters 2012 or Odd Weather 2012, and the list is long.
Oh, yeah. It's almost endless.
Long. It's obscene long. So I know one day the guys on the Weather Channel will begin to point out the chemtrails on the satellite imagery. One day this will happen. It isn't going to be tomorrow, but one day we will get there. We'll cross this threshold to where we have a knowledge of what's happening out there. And, it'll happen. But I think, George, they need to know why it's there, what they're doing, what the trails are there for. And it's all about surveillance.
Well, it's about surveillance, and I think you're absolutely right. If it's going on, it's about money, it's about profiteering, it's about control. Maybe it's about wars, too, Scott. What do you think?
I think it is. We're still in an economic crisis. We're not through with that yet. We haven't really come out the other side. And so, anytime there is a weather disaster, small or large, there is an economic impact, locally, citywide, county and state and nationally. And that is money moving through the system. In the wake of World War II, in the wake of the Civil War, in the wake of World War I, there's all of this reconstruction that happens. There is jobs, there is the prosperity returns, and so we get little bits of that when Joplin is torn up. We get little bits of that when New Orleans is flooded. We get some of that when the Jersey Shore is demolished. We get some of that reconstruction. Our problem now is that this nation is on the verge of bankruptcy.
Yes, it is.
So, what was a $25-30 billion hurricane for Katrina is now a $60 billion event for New York City. And that doesn't
we can't handle. Yeah, we can't handle another big hurricane.
What kind of concerned me if the other person had won the presidency, then the states and counties would have been on their own. Would have been on their own, and that would have been tough. That would have been really tough for people. So we have this free money spigot right now coming out of the Fed. And so I suppose it's a good thing that we can use it, but it's that same money that funds these programs. That same spigot coming out the back of the Fed that, sprays the dollar bills on top of Boeing, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, Dow Chemical, Honeywell, all Ransberry, all of these companies that are in the military industrial complex. It's not one company, it's not two companies, it's this group. It's this group. And go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, we're coming up to the break, so I want you to just hold on. We're going to come back in just a moment. We're going to take phone calls with you. Scott's website, weatherwars.info, linked up for you at coasttocoastam.com. You can also reach him through his website. You can, of course, email me at
Pacific, cruise in the Atlantic, and you can see in the moraine layer off the coast, west coast of U.S. and Mexico, these plumes that these ships leave. And what's curious is that these ships will establish a grid in the bottom 8,000 feet of the atmosphere in the marine layer. and this grid lights up on satellite imagery, and you you can see this, that they're also engineering this basic, this bottom layer of the sky. So it's all about information, George, and what they can do with it. You know, if there's a cold snap coming from the west and that Arctic air is going to reach Florida in a week's time, any speculator who's in the futures market would buy orange juice futures or grapefruit futures.
You're right. No, you're right.
That's what you do.
Yep.
And then the price goes up, you know, by 4, 5, 6 cents or dimes, and you've bought millions of dollars of options, and you in a week's time double your money.
Let's go to the phones. Ricardo is in California. He'll be our first caller of the hour. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Hello, George, and to your fine guests. Good evening to both of you. I've been watching this process since about 1999, actually, and in 2003 I started photographing and taking dozens of photos until the present time period over Novato, California. And I saw a particular grid that was a constant. It was like an apple pie, top of an apple pie, the lattice work on a pie. And it was constant back and forth, and I could see that airliners were flying to Oakland International, SFO, and San Jose International, and they were not flying these patterns. These planes that were doing this were at an altitude that were about another 20,000 feet above the regular normal airliners that I would see landing over the Bay Area and leaving the airports. And I would take the highest point in San Francisco I could go to was at a place where the high Sears area was a Sears store on Masonic Boulevard at Gary Boulevard. And I would stand there and just watch with 10 times 50 binoculars and then photograph these things. And the funny part is that in Marin County, I've been watching for the last several years now, and they fly in unison straight across the whole sky and make a pattern about half a mile to a quarter mile apart, and then start localizing closer and closer. And the cloud format is very thin first, ejected from the planes, and then becomes very wide after about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Normal planes eject their exhaust, and it disappears in 15 seconds to about a minute at most. And one thing that I can say is on normal days you can see airliners flying, and why aren't there chemtrails on other days, or the exhaust the other way around when there are no planes? But you see chemtrails just everywhere, and sometimes I see planes flying left and right to the airport, but there are no chemtrails, just the basic exhaust. And this is very scary. I'll tell you that if we're breathing what's really in these things, I can bring this up only because Science Illustrated magazine had something on this issue called Engineering Earth, in May-June 2010 issue, and it shows a plane right there under fake volcanoes, and also the ships the guest just mentioned are under also fake volcanoes as giant cloud makers. They're emitting ships with these huge cloud formations just like the airliners do, and it shows a fake volcano airliner on page 57 of this issue, Science Illustrated Engineering Earth. How we will re-engineer Earth with 9 specific different processes that are going to harm everything from and leaving the airports. And I would take the highest point in San Francisco I could go to was at a place where the high Sears area was a Sears store on Masonic Boulevard at Gary Boulevard. And I would stand there and just watch with 10 times 50 binoculars and then photograph these things. And the funny part is that in Marin County, I've been watching for the last several years now, and they fly in unison straight across the whole sky and make a pattern about half a mile to a quarter mile apart, and then start localizing closer and closer. And the cloud format is very thin first, ejected from the planes, and then becomes very wide after about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Normal planes eject their exhaust, and it disappears in 15 seconds to about a minute at most. And one thing that I can say is on normal days you can see airliners flying, and why aren't there chemtrails on other days, or the exhaust the other way around when there are no planes? But you see chemtrails just everywhere, and sometimes I see planes flying left and right to the airport, but there are no chemtrails, just the basic exhaust. And this is very scary. I'll tell you that if we're breathing what's really in these things, I can bring this up only because Science Illustrated magazine had something on this issue called Engineering Earth, in May-June 2010 issue, and it shows a plane right there under fake volcanoes and also the ships the guest just mentioned, or under also fake volcanoes as giant cloud makers. They're emitting ships with these huge cloud formations just like the airliners do, and it shows a fake volcano airliner on page 57 of this issue, Science Illustrated Engineering Earth. How we will re-engineer Earth with 9 specific different processes that are going to harm everything from sequestration under the ground of our waste of all types into biochar and everything else, subterranean storage. We're going to kill our whole atmosphere, our oceans with acidity, our water, ourselves, if we don't stop it.
Well, and it's already happening, and it's happening very fast, Scotty, isn't it?
Well, it's been going on for 30 or 40 years. And, it's just, what is the end game? When does it end? When is enough enough? When will we, as the population who have allowed this to happen, had enough? Because the soils at some point are going to say, we can't take this alkalinization. It's too much. The forest soils in California, that pH has come up from 5.4 to 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 6.0, 6.1, 6.2. It just keeps climbing. At some point, the soils are going to say, we just can't take it anymore. Just like the soils in the plains, they're absorbing all of this fallout as well. But then they're having this additional inundation of Roundup. And at some point, our soils are going to say, we can't do it anymore. We simply can't produce. And that's going to be a huge wake-up call for people. And that's when the famine begins, when we have massive crop failures. And George, in some ways, I'm amazed that we've been able to go as long as we have under this onslaught from the skies. Because it is a daily affair.
At what point, though, Scott? At what point do these whistleblowers come forward and say, you know what, enough is enough, this is what's been going on, and here it is?
Well, I trust that when we have provided them enough cover, when the public is ready to say, yes, I see that, and what is it? I'd like some answers now, please. And I think when we get to that point, and my intuition says that we're close. We are truly very, very close. Because this message is out there, and it is out there, and it is out there, and what is happening in the sky, every year it is more and more blatant. It's more blatant because they are egotistic, and they don't expect that we're going to recognize it. We're meat on the table for them. That's just how they look at humankind. We're just steak on the table. And so, because the good education is theirs, and then the good food is theirs, they have that knowledge. They have that understanding. They have that illuminated knowledge that they would like to believe in. But they don't have compassion and caring and understanding, and those kind of basic human qualities. They're not there. They're absent. So, the other question I get often is, aren't they doing it to themselves too? Maybe.
All right, let's go to Clint.
Maybe they're not on this planet. Maybe they're not here.
Where might they be?
Somewhere else. Somewhere where the air is cleaner. Or, because it really is beginning to feel like we're enduring a very slow, scorched earth policy.
Anchorage, Alaska, we go. Clint, go ahead. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, George and Scotty. I have a question on these chemtrails. And I heard that they are also they're a spray antenna. And Nick Baggage invented the spray antenna to run our drones, to modify our atmosphere to run these, because you can't run a drone from an office that is 1,800 miles away unless you have a spray antenna. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that term. Spray antenna.
Well, it's a spray antenna to run these drones.
Yeah, because they're definitely drones. That's been my conclusion. Is that there aren't passengers. There's not commercial cargo. There is a very specific cargo on these planes. when they crisscross the sky, they don't have a landing gate that they have to be to on time. They're out there investigating other anomalies in the sky, anomalies in the cirrus clouds, anomalies on previous trails that have been laid down. They're up there looking for things. And it's crazy as they arrive on site, almost incredibly to the second. There's got to be some incredible mother computer running all of this.
Do any of your colleagues, Scott, any of your colleagues back up what you say?
They see it, but they just haven't taken the time to figure out, what's it doing? Why are they there? To my knowledge, I'm the only weatherman that, bought 4 cameras, 2 computers, and time-lapse software and started time-lapsing the sky. I needed to know. And apparently for a lot of people, it's okay to kind of know, or to not know at all. But I had to know. And so, a spray antenna is kind of an interesting concept. Is he still around to elaborate a touch?
No, he's not.
Okay. No, some of them do, George. And there are so many people out there that now know about this topic that I know that every newsroom in this country has been hit with this topic many times.
Yeah. Well, there are organizations. There's a group in California that specifically deals with chemtrails. They get a lot of people together and go over that. So it's growing.
Like Southern California Skywatch.
Yeah.
And I love to see that kind of organization. My YouTube channel, when I do videos, which is, probably once or twice a week, I'll get a video up. The channel's Weather Wars. It's curious, the comments that get spammed. So I know somebody from the powers that be is watching me. And those comments that get spammed almost unilaterally have to do with the tracking of aircraft. The powers that be seem to be horrified that we might actually put together a Twitter-type network where we can trace the planes from coast to coast. We can watch them. That we might be able to get a couple of hundred people who will go outside with binoculars and their smartphones and to start watching these things. Then hand a plane off from one observer to the next observer to the next observer so we can see where they're going. Because Flight Radar 24 and some of these other plane tracking apps work to a point. They work great with the civilian fleet that have their transponders turned on, but are communicating back with air traffic control. But then there's this whole other fleet that isn't beholden to the civilian authorities. I mean, I know a man who out of one of the Air Force bases here in Colorado was on a military transport plane, and they missed a 730. They were on a C-130. They missed a Southwest Airlines 737 jet by 84 feet.
84 feet.
That close.
That is crazy.
And nobody could get a hold of that plane. Nobody on board could get a hold of that Southwest Airlines 737.
Like it was a private plane or what?
Well, it was a drone plane, and there was nobody on board at the radio.
And maybe they paint it to look like a Southwest plane?
Exactly.
Let's go to Joe in Detroit. Hey, Joseph, go ahead.
Hey, gentlemen. This is an outrage, man. What's going on here. I've been watching things to coast for the past couple of years. I got a cell phone. I take pictures, even with my little phone here, man.
Yeah.
Crisscrossing. Then at the end of the day, you look at the sky and it's murky, yellow, like from the old steel mills, man.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of planes are these? Where are they coming from out west? People should be standing up. I mean, we've had the worst summer we've had here in Detroit area that I can remember. I'm 63. I mean, steel gray skies, George, you remember those skies during the winter? Every day. Rain, man. And, enough. I mean, where are these planes coming from? What kind of planes are these? What can we do? I tried to tell a friend about this. They looked at me like I'm crazy. I said, let me show you the pictures. I sent the photos, and then they didn't know what to say.
Yeah,
and that's the big thing. Joe's got the big thing. What can we do, Scott?
Well, you're doing what you can do, and that is just informing without hyperbole, your neighbors, your friends, your family. Because it may take a dozen instances where they hear the terms, where they're confronted with the information, before either A, their curiosity gets the better of them and they start investigating for themselves, or two, they see something in the sky that they say that they know shouldn't happen naturally. And then, after seeing that bizarreness in the sky, they're like, oh, I get it. It's really happening. I see now. That's what convinced me. I had my moment like that. And it was a blue sky day in Idaho in August of 4. Not a cloud in the sky. Humidity up there was less than 20%. And there was this ugly lime green 747 that went from the northeastern sky to the southwestern sky, and leaving this trail that was so thick. I'm like, what the heck is this? And that was my first chemtrail that I looked at and went, oh my goodness, that's it. That's one of them. Now I'm on board. Now I just have to figure out what they're doing.
I see them all the time.
Yeah, I do too. And George, I would bet that 98% of the trails we see in the sky, short or long or persistent, are all chemtrails. These engines of these jets, these Pratt & Whitneys, these Rolls-Royce, these GE engines are so efficient. They're high efficiency, bypass their turbofans. They're very, very efficient. I mean, they have to be. With aviation fuel at $3 plus a gallon, they're not going to want to waste much of that. And so I think the commercial fleet here that I see more often than not, 9.5 times out of 10, leaves no trail regardless of the weather. Regardless of the weather.
Scotty, stay with us. We're going to come right back after this quick break. We're going to take final phone calls for you as we talk about weather manipulation.
I do.
All right, next up, let's go to Robin in Oakland, California. Hi, Robin. Thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure thing.
Wonderful program, Scott. Thank you very much. I was listening to you, and all of a sudden it dawned on me. You had a guest the other night, George, that was speaking about the reptilian people who are still off planet on account of they cannot get on planet because of the oxygen.
Yes.
And they cannot tolerate the oxygen. And all of a sudden, the two things just click together on account of, I suffer terribly from the sinus. Everybody I know suffers from the sinus thing. Your sinuses are stuffed up and, fibromyalgia and all of these immune deficiency diseases.
Yep.
And does that resonate at all? I mean, it just came out of the blue.
Well, it does. We kind of have a toxic environment that we're in, and with every breath we take, we have to be able to have our systems process, essentially isolate and then flush out these toxins, whether it's aluminum or the barium, strontium, or whether it's radiation or just stuff that is in our food. And
do you think though that that this is like trying to prepare the planet for the reptilians?
If they're truly preparing this planet for the reptilians, we'll all be gone.
Yeah,
we'll all be gone.
Exactly.
Because across the universe, when evolution happens, you end up with two types of beings. You end up with an advanced reptilian and then the mammalian human. And the two races are largely incompatible.
Yes, they are.
And so what happens time after time after time, solar system after solar system, universe after universe, is one has to exterminate the other so they can survive. And our development as human beings, we're just working through the emotional centers. And so we're very, very susceptible to fear-based programming. Very susceptible. Because when we evolve a little more, we'll look at the TV in 50 years, or granted if we ever have it, at a news replay from 50 years back, at being today's time, and go, oh my goodness, we swallowed that stuff? this is what they were feeding us? This crap? You know, they parade gun shootings, they parade disasters, they parade the victimhood response, and that's what they want out of us. Victims.
Are you disappointed that your colleagues, after you would leave, would attack you?
It's typical. It's typical. It doesn't matter whether you're cheerleaders or congressmen. They do that. That's human nature, and that's where this society has evolved to. And George, I trust that humankind will evolve in the future. And that's what excites me. And I believe as we get this agenda that they're pushing on us, you know, to the forefront and at a point of discussion, we will have another platform to evolve humankind a little bit farther. We'll be one step closer to being free of this kind of programming. I don't know when it's going to happen, but we're one day closer.
Let's go to Lonnie in Newport, North Carolina, east of the Rockies. Hi, Lonnie. Thanks for calling.
Hey, George. Hey, Scott.
Hey.
Hello.
I wanted to ask you, you're talking about climate change, if you considered the extra UV rays that are now we're being faced with. The ozone layer has thinned.
Yeah. And ultraviolet will assist in some kind of mutations, genetic or otherwise. You know,
I'm talking about the heat mainly.
Pardon me?
I'm talking mainly about the extra heat.
About heat? I think we can handle heat. I really do.
Well, to a point.
What will happen is the oceans say, this pattern isn't working for us anymore. And so what will happen is they'll quit transporting fresh water to the north. And that thermocline, which is already beginning to wind down that Gulf Stream up the east coast of the U.S. and into the North Atlantic, that circulation will slow. And once that happens, once that reaches its point of no return, then the ice age will begin. We'll begin to put more snows and more ice at the poles. The albedo of the planet will change, more light's reflected back into space, and the cooling will commence. And in fact, there is data from the National Centers for Atmospheric Research in the ClimateGate that happened back in 2009 when vast emails were loosed by a whistleblower that the Earth actually began to cool in 1997. And their concern in Boulder is not what do we do about global warming, but something purely political, and how do we hide the decline in temperature. Climate science is corrupt. It's politicalized. It's been politicized.
Has it been bought off?
It's been bought off. It's corrupt. So when you hear these climate change, these global warming stories, all of that is simply a cover for the weather modification agenda, and to get us pliable to pay a carbon tax.
The only hassle is the mud. The mud's hassle. Is this the drag you went off? Yeah. Or is this alright? No, it's a drag. It's a drag? Yeah. Oh man, it's a goof. It's a goof. Do you feel discouraged at all, or is this alright?
It's fine. I got something to say. I want to know how come the fascist pigs have been seeding the clouds. Right. Last hour, the airplanes going over twice with all the smoke coming out of them seeding the clouds. And I want to know, why that stuff is going down, man. And why doesn't the media report that stuff to the people, man? I'm telling you what happened. The planes come over an hour and a half and they see all the clouds. It's the second time they did this. People of unknown origin were seeding the clouds over the I don't know what they hope to prove, man.
What's going on here?
Oh yeah.
I'm coming up here.